Well, hey there, my name is Luke, and you're listening to the Good Folks Doing Good Work podcast, a podcast where I get to interview folks all throughout the coffee supply circle about the good they're trying to bring into the world and hopefully remind you to keep bringing good things into this world in your context. So let's get into this week's podcast. Well, today we have the pleasure of speaking with Kat Melheim, who you probably know as Roaster Kat. She's a roaster, a writer, an artist, content creator, and all-around coffee person. In 2013, she started in coffee as a barista, then became a roaster in 2017. A year later, Kat founded Coffee People Zine, which is an award-winning journal of art for people in coffee. And in 2021, she lived on a coffee farm and posted regularly on Instagram as Roaster Kat. 2024, she began working for Algrano, which is a green coffee trading platform. And through all of her work, Kat seeks to simplify complex concepts, invite others along, and educate on topics related to coffee and coffee roasting. Hailing from right here in North Carolina, welcome to the Good Folks podcast, Kat.
Woot woot. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Kat, when was the moment that you realized that coffee was going to be a career for you?
That's a really good question. I think for me, there hasn't been one moment where I was like, oh, I guess coffee will be a career for me. I feel like there have been a number of times where I've been like, oh, I've been doing this for a really long time now, and I guess I'll keep going. I started in coffee, as you mentioned, in 2013 as a barista. And at that time, my background is actually in social work. I studied social work and worked with populations experiencing homelessness for a number of years. And really through that, just kind of like burnt out and needed a break. And that's how I got into coffee, into that first barista job. I needed an emotional break. And my intention at the time was to then go back to school, get a master's in social work, and either do policy work or individual therapy. But it kind of was like year by year, I was like, okay, maybe next year I'll apply for grad school. Okay, well, now the time has passed, so I'll wait for the applications to come around next year. And in the social work world, if you have a bachelor's degree in social work, you can do just a 1-year kind of accelerated master's degree. But most of those, you have to have had your bachelor's degree within the past 7 years. So I guess you could say it was at year 7 when I decided, so like around 2020, 2021, that I was like, if I don't go back to school now, I don't get the 1-year accelerated degree. Okay, I'm not going back to school. I'm staying in coffee. And so if there has to be one event or one moment, it would probably be that decision. But previous to that, there were just kind of so many experiences that I had where I was like, oh, I can do this in coffee. Oh, I can do this and stay in coffee. And a lot of that being continuously learning, going from being a barista to being a cafe manager, realizing I didn't want to manage people, so switching into roasting, and also the amount of travel you can do if you're working in coffee. I mean, you can travel if you work in anything, but for coffee, you can travel to so much of the world and see coffee being grown and meet people who are involved on that side. And then you can also travel to other places and there are cafes and you can talk to people who are in coffee. So it kind of like expanded the touch points I had around the globe. And I already loved to travel. So many times when I would travel and as I continued to realize you can keep learning and keep growing and switching jobs and stay in coffee, that I was like, all right, I'm stuck here.
Hey, really quickly, I have 3 things I want to share with you. Number 1, I run a consulting firm called Pomelo Coffee Consulting, and we only work with coffee roasters, and we help them with 3 things: their people, their processes, and their profit. Now, within Pomelo, I also run a cohort called Junto. There's 2 of them. One's for owners of coffee roasteries. The other one is exclusively for leaders within coffee roasteries, and both of them are structured similarly. They both have a peer-to-peer coaching portion. You can add on some one-on-one time with me. There's some learning opportunities. But man, I gotta tell you, it has been incredible to see what is possible when a group of leaders get in a virtual room together and are sharing challenges, have some learning opportunities, share the things that they're learning, share resources. It's very, very cool. And so if this sounds interesting to you, you can find out more in the show notes, or you can go to pomelocoffeeconsulting.com, and there's a whole tab there for Junto, both of those groups. Now, lastly, I'm releasing a book. It's slated to be released towards the end of the summer, early fall, and it's on the framework that I use when I work with clients. So if you want to be one of the first to receive that book, head over to my website. There's a tab for the book, and you can pre-order a book now. Back to the episode. You can keep learning, you can keep growing, and stay in coffee and also switch jobs. That's really important. I know for me personally, I went through seasons where I was like, oh, I guess I don't really see a path forward for me to stay in coffee and do the things I want to do, or go to the places I want to go to, or make the kind of money I want to make. And it sounds like you have found a way to do that throughout your whole career.
Yeah, I would say generally the make the money I want to make is probably the last problem I haven't found a solution to. But yeah, no, totally. I mean, I've known that I want to travel for work for many, many years. And the nice thing that as far as like the money piece is concerned, is if you work in coffee, you can travel and it's like a work expense, or you can make it part of your job. I have plenty of friends who have, would you say normal jobs, or people who are teachers or work in offices or work in admin, and they get to travel, but it's only like 2 weeks out of the year when it's their vacation. Or for teachers, they have, they have the summer where they can travel. But for me, it has been important from the very beginning to have a job where travel is like intertwined and part of my, not necessarily day to day, but week to week, month to month, year to year sort of thing. And luckily right now with my current position, I have been able to craft that. Whereas like as a barista, you can't quite travel as much as you'd probably want to. As a production roaster, you sure can't. Yeah, through becoming a content creator and kind of working into the marketing and communication space and the green coffee space, that really provides a springboard to travel to so many places. And I'll also say, as you mentioned, I started a Coffee People zine, art publication for Coffee People in 2018. And that was really a way for me to connect the dots between the coffee industry and art in a way that has grown, developed, deepened in a way that I never could have imagined. But it has allowed me to kind of create a job where like I can make art as part of my, I guess it's not my job, but side hustles. And I can create art as part of my career, at least, we'll say.
You mentioned travel half a dozen times in the couple of sentences. Why is that such a high priority for you?
When I was growing up, my parents really focused on experiences rather than things. And part of that was every summer when I was in like elementary school, junior high, high school, we would go on a 2-week-long family vacation most of it was within the US. Sometimes we would go to Canada, but it would be like a driving vacation throughout some part of the US. And that really, I think, my parents' emphasis and prioritization of travel and experiences was just something that I really love. I mean, people have asked me why I love to travel before. And I'm like, I don't know, because it's fun, because I have a good time mostly. I mean,
I think new food and see new places. Right. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I really love novelty and experiencing and seeing new things. And I think, the easiest way or the most readily available way is to travel and see new cultures, taste new foods, meet people with different cultural backgrounds as you, and see different cities, see different landscapes. So yeah, I love to travel. It feels good to me.
I know folks on both sides of that coin, so it makes sense. Some folks are more comfortable in those their home environment. And some folks are meant to travel, meant to move around, and good for your parents for emphasizing the experiences over things and for giving you the early childhood training to get out there and travel and not be afraid of travel, but to enjoy it and to receive it. So what's the connection to coffee and art? You had mentioned it sort of converging in Coffee People Zine. What sort of art do you do?
Well, I'm actually in the beginning-ish of a new series right now where I'm calling it Making Art with Coffee in Strange and Unexpected Ways, abbreviated to Making Art with Coffee. But I'm doing like a bunch of random stuff, just taking coffee and being like, what would happen if I, poured out coffee onto a paper and then went at it with some spray paint? What would that look like? Or I just did one where I was like, I saw somebody bleach dyeing a shirt on Instagram, and I was like, what would it look like if I threw a bunch of coffee beans on a black t-shirt and sprayed it with bleach? Would that look cool or would it look dumb? I don't know. Let's try it. And yeah, so it's kind of just like experimental at this point. I'll say, so generally I have two, veins of art that I do. One is called rosemaling, which is a traditional Norwegian folk art that was created in Norway, but then became very more popular, I suppose, in the United States in the late 19th, early 20th century with a bunch of Norwegian immigrants coming to the Midwest. My heritage, like my great grandparents, are from Norway. So that for me, that it was like a way to connect to heritage. But that rosemaling is very, very kind of prescriptive and detail oriented, very slow, methodical. There are kind of rules for different regional traditions. And then the other kind of art that I do is abstract expressionism, which is just throwing paint at the canvas, sometimes throwing the canvas at the paint, dripping things here and there. I really started doing that during COVID, really, because I was just like as self-expression. Like, in COVID, we were all stuck at home. We couldn't go to the gym. Going to the gym for me is a really big, like, emotional release and like mental health equalizer. But, we couldn't really do the same things out in the world during COVID lockdown. So I started doing this abstract expressionism just to kind of get out of my own head, to throw things around, to have an outlet. And I've kind of, I've continued that on and off since then, and then translated that kind of into this new series of Making Art with Coffee, just in a way to not overthink anything, just start and try and see what happens, kind of.
I love that. I've seen a few things that you've been doing where you've like put little beans on a paper and you've chased it around with your pen. Yeah. And it turns out to really interesting shapes and interesting art. I think it's a rad thing to do.
Yeah, no, that was the first one in the series, actually. And it was inspired by somebody that I saw on Instagram she's like a kind of mental health advocate. And she called it like taking her rock for a walk. And so she would put a rock on a piece of paper and trace it around, push it around, and then with a pen, and it would create kind of squiggles and whatever. And you can't really predict where the pen is going to, or where the rock is going to go. So you can't really control what the squiggle line is going to be on the page. So I saw that and then I was like, what would happen if I did that with a coffee bean? And then I just tried it. I tend to sometimes get caught in my head thinking, oh, what would happen if I did that? Or would it even look good or whatever? And so this was just like a way for me to start it, try it, do it. It doesn't matter if it looks good because the purpose is just doing the thing, which I guess is kind of, to call back to Coffee People Zine, is kind of also how Coffee People Zine started. And the way that, for me, that started was I was working as a barista at the time, and I was attending a lot of latte art throwdowns and community events. And I was realizing that pretty much when I would walk into the throwdown room or whatever, I could take a look, and because I knew everybody, it would be like, those are going to be the, top 6. Everybody else is going home empty-handed. And it was like the same people winning over and over and over.
Yeah.
Which is like fine. They are talented in pouring milk into espresso. Sure. Good for them.
Sure.
But after a couple of these, and they're also latte art throwdowns are just a fun time anyway. But after doing this a couple of times and like really looking around, I would also see my friends who were artists who had their art at the, up at the cafe next door, or musicians who were going to have a gig the following weekend, or people who I knew were poets, or people I knew were really great painters. And I was like, none of these other artists are like, we're not recognizing and holding them up as a community, or like recognizing their artwork. We're only really rewarding these people who can pour milk into espresso real nice. But what about the other artists? And we're all like, there are so many people. There's the Venn diagram of people who are creative and people who work in coffee is like almost a circle.
Yeah.
So Coffee People Zine was a way for me to really just, I think of it as opening blank pages for people who work in coffee to fill with their art. And the first one I did, I had no clue what I was doing. And somehow I didn't overthink it. And I was just like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it. And then that led to a second and a third. And at this point, right now in 2025, I'm on a kind of a publication pause. But we've had 25 issues of like art and poetry and photography and articles and essays by people who work in the coffee industry, which has been very, very fun. So yeah, it's been a way to, it's brought my love for art and my love for the coffee industry together in a way that has, surpassed my, I didn't have really any expectations, but surpassed anything I could have imagined.
One of the things I'm hearing out of what you're saying is that you even explicitly said, I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of went for it. And I really appreciate that. I was speaking with another coffee professional that does some writing as well. And he was saying, sometimes that we hold back the things that are not, that we're not ready to put out into the world because we don't feel like they're ready, or we don't know enough, or we feel like we haven't learned everything step A to Z. But we also sometimes just need to release it and try it. 5 issues later, you know what you're doing. You've got a rubric for how to go about it. And it's something that didn't really have a space in coffee. Like you said, the Venn diagram is essentially just a big circle of coffee and creative folks. And so, yeah, good on you for just doing it when you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, thank you. And there's some part of me that looks back and was like, how did I think, like, why did I do that? Because in many realms of my life, I do tend to get stuck in this like overthinking. But when I look back at the times where I've just sent it, for lack of a better, just gone for it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really good thing to do. And I mean, I think that through those experiences, I've realized like sometimes you can't know more until you take the first step, until you release the first thing. Yeah, for sure.
So I've been hearing some connection points that I don't know if they're connected, so I'll ask you if they are. Your background is in social work, particularly with young folks experiencing homelessness. Art is important to you. Coffee is important to you. Does your background in social work influence what you're doing now, maybe outside of the zine?
Yeah, I think it does in terms of, I mean, especially when I was a barista, the things that I learned in social work, basically like dignity and worth of a person, open communication, active listening, like the way I learned how to be, and like during my social work education helped me immensely as a barista, especially. Also, separating yourself from the problems of other people. I feel like not enough baristas have received any training or information on how to, like, if somebody approaches you at the register with the bad energy, like, that's their problem. Don't take it on. And luckily that was something I at least learned to look out for during my social work education. At this point, I think it really shaped my outlook that equity is more important than equality, like a focus on justice, not in like the punitive justice way, but a focus on justice being everybody having the resources that they need to be fulfilled human beings, and that all people are valuable. With my presence online as Roaster Kat, both on Instagram and YouTube, really what I want to do is bring education and bring equity and equalize roasting education. Because when I started my Roaster Kat account, it was because I was going to Roast Summit, Roasters Guild Retreat, and going to events, educational things that I realized, I was very lucky to be able to attend these things. And a lot of other people either didn't have the resources or didn't have the time to access these pieces of education. I feel like a lot of coffee, and especially coffee roasting, is you have to be in the place to learn the thing. And I was lucky enough to be in a lot of places to learn a lot of things. Yeah, so really starting Roaster Kat was a way to share what I was learning. I mean, it was both for me to create a record of what I was learning so I could reference it again.
Totally.
But then also to share it with people who maybe didn't have time to attend or resources to attend these events as well.
So from the beginning, it was generative and generous to try and share the information that you had access to that maybe other folks didn't.
My first roasting job, I was empowered to try anything that I wanted to with the coffee outside of wasting tons and tons and tons. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, my boss was really encouraging and really open with any knowledge that he had. And yeah, so I feel like, especially as a woman roaster, I know a lot of other women roasters who have said that they've faced setback after setback after setback, people not believing that they could be roasters, people questioning their ability to do this job. And I have very luckily not experienced that in my professional career as a coffee roaster. So I feel like a little like, I don't know, like I want to give everyone else a leg up as much as possible, because I feel that I have been unencumbered, and in fact my development as a roaster has been facilitated, and I know that that's not the experience of a lot of women roasters of color, people of minority status. So I feel like grateful for that and want to like spread the love.
It's something that is hopefully shifting, is that women are just not really welcome in the roasting space. And so it's really incredible that you, one, aren't just taking the opportunity that you've gotten that seems to be different than most other women in roasting, or at least how they started. So good for you for acknowledging that this isn't the usual experience. And then also sharing that information with folks that maybe it is their experience, and I would say most of the folks that I talk to who are, females in roasting spaces or in cupping spaces, they're oftentimes aren't super welcome. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I have been so lucky to avoid anybody who tries to.
I'm surprised that you haven't experienced that.
Yeah, I mean, the worst that I've gotten really, I think, has been when I was a production roaster at my first job, and like the truck drivers would come to drop off a pallet and they would ask if I needed help with the forklift, and I'm like, I'm literally already driving the forklift. Like, no,
I drove it here. How do you think it got to your truck?
But yeah, I mean, but I've heard horror stories from other women who have either been like who've been questioned, their authority has been questioned, their abilities have been questioned.
Yep.
Their personhood, their viability as roasters, and like all the way up to sexual harassment for being, women in roasting spaces. I've just been, I don't know how I've escaped that sort of stuff, but yeah, the more I can at least create a world where that is not the norm,
right,
the more I'm happy to step into that.
Yeah. You said something a while ago that equity is not the same as equality.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
Well, the first thing I think of is there's like a little image that I feel like is always shown with this, where there's like a fence and there's a baseball game on the other side of the fence. And on the other side of the fence, there are three people, a very tall person, a middle height person, and a very short person. And equality is giving them all the same size step ladder to see over the fence, wherein the short person still can't see over the fence. The middle person can just peek over, and the tall person can see over super easily. Equity is giving each person the size step ladder that allows them to see over the fence.
Sure.
And to me, I mean, in the coffee industry, there's so much inequity because of centuries of how the coffee industry was built at the outset to extract resources and put them in the hands of people who were colonizing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality of our industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the more communication lines are open, the more people in origin countries and roasting countries can have direct communication, the more that pricing transparency is a thing, the more the scales are being equalized. But yeah, that's kind of what I think about equity versus equality. Of you can't really expect to have equity in an unequal system.
When we think of the coffee industry at large, it's built on colonized ideals. And what's interesting is whenever I have conversations with folks that maybe are like newer to the industry, and we're sharing those conversations, as you mentioned, having those conversations around what is equity and what does that mean? When you start to share some of those ideals and share some of the history, a lot of times folks just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not aware of, well, how did coffee get to Latin America? How did that's not where it's from, and why are there certain players that have the clout or the sort of background that others don't, that might do similar things, and maybe they're selling similar coffees even. What is the difference here? And to your point about we need to have the conversations of who needs a stepladder and how big is the stepladder they need. And it doesn't mean that we're looking down on anyone. We're just trying to, we want everyone to see the ball game. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, the coffee industry is both so beautiful and so broken when you really get
mess.
into, I really believe that most people, especially in specialty, are trying to do their best and trying
100%.
to do the right thing and trying to be good people, good partners, good actors in the space. And if we don't acknowledge the history that coffee has been built on and how that informs, not even informs, but how that structures the current state of the industry, then, we're not going to have a sustainable industry, because any system built on extraction will eventually crumble when that resource is no longer extractable.
It's fully extracted.
Yeah.
So let's make it really practical. Let's say somebody just gets into the industry and they're listening. What is one thing maybe you're learning now that would be helpful for them to know or perhaps learn about related to colonization, how coffee got here, maybe our role in this game we're playing? And the reason I'm asking you for one thing is when I was in school, we were learning about history and theology, and during that process, one of the professors that I was in class with, he was like, you're going to have so much information And if you go and try to tell or have a conversation with somebody back home at the end of the semester, you're going to just overload them. So the reason why I'm asking for one thing is what's like a starting place for somebody who'd be like, you should maybe read this book, or you should learn about this.
Yeah. I was just talking with my coworker, Ty, whom I know you know. He was just like, you need to read the book Coffee Land.
Yeah.
Which I purchased like years ago and have never read. So maybe I need to start with this one book called Coffee Land that kind of spells out the history of coffee and how we got to be where we are today. I mean, I know that Cheap Coffee, what's the Cheap Coffee book?
Yep.
That one is also a really good start. That might be a little bit heavy for somebody who's just getting into the industry. It's a little bit intermediate level. So I'm going to say, on the suggestion of Ty, because I trust him implicitly, Coffee
Agreed.
Land book.
I've read Coffee Land, and I think that's a good place to start too. It's long and it's dense, but it'll give you a sort of anthropological approach towards what it is that we're doing here. From I think they're in El Salvador, is I believe where the book is based.
Another, I don't know, more like personal thing is, if you know anyone who is a coffee producer, talk to coffee producers about what their lives are like,
yes,
and what their businesses are like, and what is good for them and what is not good for them. You know, every person, every country, every region, much less every person, is completely different. But talking directly to coffee producers about their lives, their experiences, is a more tangible and personable way, I think, also to at least start learning those things. And then you might care more to read a book so big as Coffee Land or Cheap Coffee.
Sure.
Because you'll have a personal tie-in and personal anecdotes.
Personal connection. And two, like that's how you change your perspective, is sitting across the table from somebody maybe you disagree with, or maybe you just aren't aware of their experiences and you learn from them. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing a series on roastery tours on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've been loving it.
Thank
because as an ops guy, I'm just like digging, seeing how everything works and how everything is connected and what equipment people are using. So here's the question. Have you found anything that someone was doing in their roastery and you thought to yourself, why isn't everyone doing this?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a few things. And thank you for mentioning this series, because I am absolutely loving it. And
so interesting.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll also say that this is one of those things where I was like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. Just do it and then see what happens. And I've absolutely loved it, because I've learned so much and gotten to see inside world-class roasteries that, you know, I probably could have called them up and been like, hey, can I come around anyway? But if I can come with I'm doing a series on roastery tours, you know, I get in the front door. But yeah, no, it's been super fun. And let's see, things that I've learned. I mean, one thing, Little Waves here in Durham, they have like hook sort of system that's attached to the ceiling that can lift coffee bags, because their team is a lot of women and a lot of small women, like short in stature women. And so they're not trying to lift 69 kilo bags. They have a machine that does that for them, which I think everyone should have. I mean, that's one of the arguments that some people will give for why women shouldn't be roasters, because you can't lift a whole coffee bag. I don't think any person should be lifting a coffee
no, you
bag
should not.
Just for funsies. No, like I've heard stories of roasters getting hernias, pulling their back, and then being out for weeks or months and having long-term repercussions, health repercussions, because they've tried to lift a coffee bag. Don't lift a coffee bag. There's no reason.
Is it a winch that's attached to the ceiling?
That might be it. I can't remember we can watch the roastery tour video and
plug for the YouTube.
Yeah. Let's see other things. I mean, I'll say I don't think this isn't necessarily something that I'm like everyone should be doing, but it's been really interesting to see who swears by pre-roast blends and who swears by post-roast blends,
Interesting.
because some roasters are like, pre-roast blends is the only way to do it because then you
Yeah.
have consistency. And then other people are like, post-roast blends is the only way to do it because then you can specify your roast profile more easily. And like, everybody is right for them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just same thing with like air roasters or hybrid roasters like Loring versus drum roasters like Probat or Diedrich. Some people are like, oh, we use this machine because we can get the best results out of the coffees. And then the next roaster will say the exact same thing about the opposite machine. So I
Totally.
think, yeah, yeah. So I guess like the takeaway for me is like what all roasters should be doing or should learn is do what works for you in your
Do you?
space with your coffees, with your equipment,
Yeah.
with your customer base, with your palette, and then like chill.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. I'm a post roast blend advocate personally. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but that's what I recommend, and
Yep.
there's reasons for that I'm happy to share. But where do you land on that spectrum?
I'm gonna have to go with pre-roast blending.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Do you give us one or two reasons why you're a pre-roast blend proponent?
Well, and I think as you said, not to tell anyone what to do, and I think it really depends on what your SKUs are, what your menu is. But I think pre-roast blending leaves less space for overage or for figuring out what to do with little bits of this coffee and little bits of that coffee. You can more consistently roast the same batch size. Like if I'll say, if your post roast blends, if it's 50-50 all the time, then you can always roast the same amount, put them together, and you have no
Sure.
overage. But if it's a
Sure.
60-40 or a 30-30-40, or then you're going to have little bits and pieces, or you're going to need to change your roasting approach, which if you want to do that, great, that's fine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We should have a whole pod just on that.
Honestly, we should do it. We should have a full-on debate.
Let's do it. Let's fight about it. You have been connected to the marketing seat at some roasting companies, and now you're on the green side for Algrano. The thing that I think about for roasters often is the dilemma between, I have really two audiences. I have the end consumer, my retail buyers, and then I also have my wholesale accounts. And those are two different audiences that have two different needs and two different sort of talking points that they will connect with. How has your approach changed going from doing marketing exclusively for people who are buying roasted coffee to folks who are buying green coffee in your role with Algrano?
It's been a shift, but one that I've really enjoyed, to be honest, because I primarily like to talk to roasters.
Sure.
Roasters are who I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Roasters, green buyers, people in the roasting space. When I was doing marketing, I was working at Black and White on their marketing team, and I was primarily running their cafe account. So I was creating Instagram content for their shop. So it was a lot more features on seasonal drinks or coffee releases that were happening. And it wasn't my passion. It's not what I personally am passionate about communicating. I really want to talk to roasters about the issues that they're facing, the questions that they have, the things that they don't understand, the things they see other people doing but they don't know how to get there. And that's what I'm more able to do in my current role with Algrano. Yeah, it's fun and fascinating because also, as we talked about with the Inside the Roastery series that I've been doing, every roastery is different. Every roaster is different. There are, of course, categories of challenges, but really everyone has their own unique set and split of challenges. So learning about those has been really fascinating for me, especially also because I've never been a green buyer myself. I've always been when I was a coffee roaster, I've always been a production roaster. So learning about green buying, forecasting, forward buying uh, has been a whole new section of the coffee industry, but even just the roasting
Hmm.
space that I'm learning about.
So it sounds like it's a shift, but it's not a departure because this is really who you enjoy working with and talking to.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I see my role with Algrano. It's my quote main job. Like my roaster cat stuff is all, I don't know if you want to call it passion project, side hustle, side gig, just like it's like for funsies and what I like want to be creating and putting into the world. But of course, a person has to make money in order to live. So Algrano is my like
True.
daily income. It's my daily job. But I really see it almost as more of a subset of the other stuff that I'm trying to create with Roaster Cat, which is educational resources for roasters about coffee and coffee roasting, connecting origin to roasting. Because I think that the more roasters know and understand and are connected with producers, the better. I mean, talking back about equity, the more equity we can create within the specialty industry. So yeah, and I what I really want to do big picture is give tools, education, encouragement to roasters that allow them to be better roasters. And to me, better roasters
Hmm.
means roasting coffee better, but also being better partners in a sustainable industry, being a stronger link in
Hmm.
the entire supply chain. Because again, as we've said, if we're being extractive, that's going to run out. And it's also just kind of shitty.
Yeah.
If I can help strengthen that chain and make it more sustainable, more equitable, better for all people, um, yeah, that's what I hope to do somehow.
Yeah. I think you're doing it. And I think that the stated intention of trying to create tools and educational material is great. But I think the intention behind that of we have to create an ecosystem that works for the whole supply circle. And I'm super aligned with that. And I think that we can talk about roasting all day. We can talk about pre blend. We could talk about post roast
Roast proof.
blend. We can talk about putting up a winch in your roastery or whatever it is. But if it's fundamentally not helping the roasters, if what you're doing isn't helping roasters participate in a system that actually is sustainable, and I don't mean sustainable from like a green perspective, I mean like so that we can keep having coffee,
Mhm.
it's kind of pointless. So I really appreciate you not just making those things for the sake of making them and sharing education for the sake of doing it. Thank you for having a real purpose behind that, because that's what we need is more folks that understand that we're doing more than just talking about coffee here.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. And I think I almost like retroactively discovered my own motivations for creating content because really I started just for funsies. Like, I mean, kind of,
Yeah,
like it seems like this is a through line. I just start things for funsies and I'm like, "Oh,
there's
maybe
something
this is a
here.
thing." But yeah, I mean, I have my Roaster Cat Instagram account. I actually started it. It was called Roaster's Apprentice because
Oh, interesting.
I started it in 2017 when I was learning how to roast because
Hmm.
especially at that point I was learning. I didn't consider myself a roaster or a roaster educator. I was an apprentice. I am learning. And so I'm going to make this catalog and share these things that I'm learning with other people. Like I am an apprentice here. I'm learning. And it wasn't until like 2021, I think, that I changed it to Roaster Cat. And that's when I started working as a roaster at Black and White. And I was getting access to a ton more coffees, so many different varieties that I'd never seen, so many different processing methods than I'd ever seen, tools and equipment that Black and White was using that I was like, oh, this is great. The the scoop that they had, now it's my like favorite roastery tool because it's really good for your wrist.
It's a famous scoop now.
Yeah, I know. I need to brand one and make like the cat scoop or something.
Yeah, you need a cut from those
Yeah,
scoop sales
for
you've
real.
created.
So I changed the name from Roaster's Apprentice to Roaster Cat. I mean, part of that was because I was also starting to travel internationally more, especially to like Central and South America. And trying to say Roaster's Apprentice to someone whose first language is Spanish was very difficult. I mean, apprentice is a hard word to spell in English, much less if English isn't your first language. So I was like, I need to make this a lot easier
Sure.
to communicate. And that's really also when I kind of started posting a lot more frequently and just having kind of fun with it, making silly videos or sharing the things that I was seeing because I was interested in them, not because I was like, oh, this is a valuable piece of information, but like, oh, this is cool. Maybe somebody else would think it's cool.
Totally.
And to be honest, when my content first started getting popular, I'll say, I had a little bit of embarrassment because I was like, what is even happening? Like I should
Sure.
have I should, I don't know, because there's a lot of content out there that's like, this is how to become an influencer, or this is how to grow your presence online, or this is how to market and build your brand and blah, blah, blah. And I was like doing none of that. I was just like, I'm
Sure.
gonna post whatever videos I think are funny. Cool. So I like had some like imposter syndrome at the beginning where I was like, people keep liking my videos, but I'm not like making it for them to like it, but they do. So I feel like that kind of made me do some like internal introspection of like, why do I like making these videos so much? Like, what is this about? And so I was kind of able to come to two realizations. One was kind of like travel, kind of like abstract expressionism. It's just fun for me. I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would I not do something that I enjoy?
Yeah.
But then I also was able to kind of discover this internal motivation of I have been given a lot of tools, a lot of resources. I've been encouraged in my journey in coffee. I've been welcomed. I've been like inspired. And I want everyone to have that.
Yeah.
And I want the coffee industry to continue. I want everyone in roasting, but also everyone in producing, everyone in like all baristas. I want everyone to have as easy of a time as I have had.
And we're back to the beginning around equity. And yeah, it's very cool. It's all connected and aligned.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to just acknowledge that we said have fun with it. There's so many folks out there who think that they have to create something that's perfect, or have some specific strategy for if I make this art, or if I start a roastery, or what have you, or if I want to create content for social. There's this perspective that you have to make it perfect. Just throughout your entire career, it seems like you've just been having fun with it, and the things that resonate, you just keep doing those things. And that's so important because people are going to connect with the things that you're enjoying and the things that are inspiring you because they're inspiring you and you're enjoying them. And so thank you for reminding us. That's super important. I have a question related to cleaning roasters. I was listening to one of your other podcasts, and you're talking about cleaning, and you were like, I am a big fan of cleaning roasters.
I love roasting.
And for me, I look at it as a safety thing. You got to keep the thing safe.
Yeah,
Number
for sure.
one.
Yeah.
But then also, it's more delicious when you are working with a clean piece of equipment that's not just full of char and previous roast residue. So what are some things that you might recommend, or maybe you have a video on this, I bet, on cleaning roasters?
This has been a series that I have wanted to do for years and years and years, and I haven't actually yet done a full series. I've put up like roaster cleaning tips on Instagram, especially when I was working at Black and White. I had easier access to the machines, but no, this is something that I've been wanting to do for so long. Like previous to COVID, I was like this close to getting sponsorship for a series that was going to be like, did you ever watch Dirty Jobs on Discovery
Oh
Channel?
yeah, totally.
Dirty
Yeah.
Jobs with Mike Rowe. I wanted to just like make that, but for coffee roaster cleaning. Like go to
Yes.
different
I love
coffee
it.
roasteries around the country or
Yes.
world, and basically just like film cleaning their machines.
So cool.
I think it would be, I would have a great time. I
I
think it
would
would be
watch it.
hilarious. Thank you very much. I mean, yes, because there's definitely keeping a roaster clean is important because of safety, because of flavor. If
Hmm.
you let your cooling tray get
Hmm.
super gunked up, your airflow is not going to be the same. The
Right.
coffee's not going to cool the same, so it's
Hmm.
not going to be consistent, etc. Also, a lovely before and after is so nice. Like
Yes.
just
Yeah.
before gunk everything, after shiny clean, it's aesthetically beautiful
Yes.
and so satisfying. So yeah, there's like a both sides of that coin. I'm all in. But no, I haven't yet made
Yeah.
this. If anybody out there wants to sponsor me to make this series, or if
Let's do
anyone
it.
has, if anyone has a really, really dirty, gunky roaster that you would let me film cleaning and you want help with cleaning, because I would of course help, let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram at roastercat.
There's a need, I think, for that, and I'm just thinking about other shows that are similar to that. I'm thinking about what's it, Hell's Kitchen, or not Hell's Kitchen? What was the
Kitchen Nightmare.
Kitchen
Kitchen
Nightmares?
Nightmares.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've wanted to do that for roasters on the operation side of things, because,
Totally.
but I at the same time it would be a little exposing. Coffee's a pretty small community, so I don't know if that would
Totally. Yeah.
hurt
I mean,
somebody's feelings.
yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that the sponsorship didn't really go through, is they were like, are you gonna get anybody to actually
Yeah.
let you into their roastery if the roaster is really, really dirty? I was like, there's got to be someone. There's got to be a
Listen, Gordon Ramsay did it,
yeah,
so
yeah.
why not?
Just
Why
trying
not
to
Kat?
yeah, but yeah.
Oh goodness. So I've been hearing about these cupping bowls that you've been working on. I heard you did quite a few tests. This
This
is them.
is
If you're listening and not watching, it is a beautiful cup. There's a little ledge on the bottom so they can stack one on top of the next, and it's all white. There's some rad cat cup logo on the bottom. There's nothing on the inside because
you gotta keep it consistent. You
that's
don't want
right.
to
We don't influence
want to
folks.
know anything about anything. But it is curved on the inside. On the outside, it's like a 90-degree angle, but the inside is actually curved. There is not a 90-degree angle on the inside. Yes, this is the Cat Cup production model. We also have this other cup that's a little bit more curvy. This is, we're calling the Omni. Basically, so I'm working with a ceramic manufacturer called Portland, and they reached out to me just, I guess, over a year ago now, because they're sponsoring the Cup Tasters Championship, the World Cup Tasters Championships. And they didn't have a cup specifically for cup tasting, specifically for this competition, and they wanted to make one. So through a friend of a friend in coffee, they reached out to me and were like, hey, would you like to design a cupping bowl? And I was like, yes, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, of course I would. Especially, as I've said, I really want to create tools for roasters, and this is literally a physical tool. A lot of the tools that I've created are more like on the education side, the content side. This is a physical thing that you can hold. So I had already done a bunch of testing of cupping bowls that already existed. You can watch that on YouTube if you want to. And basically I realized at the end of the day, all cupping bowls are almost the same in that they serve the same purpose, in that they hold coffee. Like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, reinvent the cupping bowl. But what I noticed through this testing was that there were some bowls that I liked better for certain reasons and some bowls that I hated for other reasons. So when I went to design the Cat Cup, I wanted to accentuate all the things that I loved about cupping bowls and get rid of all the things that I hated. And it's really quite practical. Like, for me, the things that I love were things that allowed me as a cupper to approach the cupping like the most neutral to neutral positive.
Right.
The things that I hated were things that made me upset or like frustrated me while cupping. One of those things is like if it tips easily. There are some cups that have
Yeah.
like a really small base and a really
Mm-hmm.
wide opening at the top. When
Yeah.
you're skimming, you can easily bump those over, or if you bump into the table, they can knock over. That creates a really uncomfortable and frustrating experience for a cupper.
Right.
And I think this also like goes back to, I guess we could call this back to my education in social work and I have a minor in psychology as well, but I think cupping at its core is meant to evaluate coffee, and you can most accurately evaluate something if you are in a neutral to neutral positive headspace, emotional space. If you're frustrated, if you're angry because you knocked a cup over, if you're embarrassed that you didn't skim all of the crust off at a cupping, at like a public cupping, if your cups didn't stack and then they knocked over and you broke one, you're not going to be approaching the cupping with the most unbiased. You can never be completely unbiased, but with the
Right.
most fair mindset. And I mean, this kind of also gets back to like equity, that if a roaster is cupping a green coffee and they score it really low because they're pissed off because they knocked a cup
Right.
over, that's not going to be fair or equitable to the producer whose coffee they're evaluating. So yeah, I get that's like a long way to say there's a lot of thought and like kind of backstory or context that went into designing these cups.
Yeah.
But really, yeah, it was, and the result of which is a cup that I was like, this is the cup that I want to use all the time.
Sure.
And yeah, so there are two kind of lines. Portland has a team of designers. So I came to them with all of the like bullet points, the things that I wanted in a cupping bowl. And then I also drew something, which was identical to the production line. Their designers also took my notes, my bullet points, and they created something that they thought was a little more elevated because they're coming from the background of being porcelain manufacturers. They want to create
Sure.
something that looks beautiful, that feels beautiful in your hand. And the Omni really, really accomplishes that while also kind of checking off all of those bullet points. But the production line for me was like if I am a coffee roaster and I'm conducting a cupping, this is the bowl that I want to have. So also that's why we're calling this the production, and the other one,
Sure.
the like curvy one, the Omni, because also we've gotten feedback from cafe owners that like the Omni fits really, really well in your hand. It's really beautiful to hold. It feels really nice and can like double from a cupping bowl, but also as a coffee service cup,
Sure.
like for
Yeah.
cappuccinos or small lattes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there's two of them. So there's the Omni and then there's the production.
Mhm.
And their TBD release?
They will be released very, very soon. So Portland is the manufacturer, and they also have they have a network of distributors they're based in Turkey. So they have a network of distributors in Asia, Europe, and like that part of the world. And then United Beverage Solutions is our distributor here in the US and Canada. They're based in Canada, but with the new tariffs and things
What?
are
There's tariffs? I didn't hear about that.
news, breaking news. Yeah, with the tariffs, basically that has created that it's added time to our release timeline because
Totally.
the pricing has to be adjusted and
Yeah.
all of this and that and the other. But they should be. I don't know when this podcast is being released, but they should be available for order in late September.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of weeks then.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Should be.
All right.
You follow me on Instagram. I'll definitely be saying when they're available. And also if you can follow United Beverage Solutions on Instagram if you're in the US and Canada, because they'll also be posting about it. And then we also have information for Europe. If you want to order them there, you can reach out to me on Instagram, and also I'll just be posting about it.
So they should reach out to you if they have questions, if they're in another country outside of the US too?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
And then I'll probably give you a link to somebody else who can
Very cool.
do it for you. I'm not involved in the distribution at all personally, so I can't give you like direct information, but I can send you to the people who will be dealing with it.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, we will definitely get some links and information and put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to talk about before we boogie.
Yeah.
Level Up.
Yeah.
You're one of the founding members, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm one of the founding board members for Level Up.
Cool. So for the folks that don't know, which I feel like almost everyone knows at this point, but what's Level Up?
Level Up is a boot camp for baristas, like summer camp for baristas. It's 2.5 days of lectures, education, hands-on training, community building, hanging out with some of the like literal world-class educators and coffee professionals right now. In September, end of September, September 27th through 29th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it's going to be so much fun. The idea came about because Rachel Apple, Sandra Loofbrow, Alexandra Littlejohn, Lauren Lathrop, me, and Ivana Chan, we were all just like talking one time. I think there were like multiple different conversations that like happened between this group of 6 of us. And maybe there were a couple of other people like in some of them as well. But there used to be barista camp from SCA used to have an annual barista camp. And some people on this founding board had been able to attend that. I personally hadn't because it was so expensive. It was like $2,000 or more.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to when I was a barista.
Totally.
And the 6 of us had kind of just been like talking and lamenting about how nothing like that exists anymore. Also how there's nothing that's kind of grassroots coffee education, at least like nationally right now. I think there are a lot of like small, local groups that do stuff and roasteries who host things and whatever, but there isn't something like this. So anyway, yeah, we just basically just set about creating it. Most props to Rachel, Sandra, and Ivana because they really made it happen. And yeah, it's going to be super fun. So if you're a barista who wants to, really the backstory, the big idea is this is a way, it's meant for baristas who want to, quote, level up their career. So most of the courses are about things you need to know as a barista and hands-on training. But then there are also a couple of sessions that are beyond barista or outside of barista. Here are other things that you can do in coffee. If at some point you don't want to be a barista anymore or you want to explore other ways to stay in the coffee industry, but barista work isn't what you want to do. So Lauren and I will be hosting a roasting class for baristas. That's going to be really fun. Mill City is hosting, so we'll be on Mill City machines. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. If you haven't signed up yet, sign up.
Are there still spots left, do you know?
Yes, a few. So sign up ASAP.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Very cool. That sounds like a really helpful and needed thing because you're right. There isn't, there isn't anything like that anymore. Mm-hmm. And we need it.
Yeah. And the really cool thing, Sandra has such an extensive background in curriculum and curriculum development that this also, it's not just one-off classes that are kind of free-floating, but there is a huge overarching structure of courses that will build on each other. This is the first year, but we're planning to make this an annual thing. So if you attend this year and you attend next year, you'll be able to build on what you learned in the first year. There'll be kind of different modules with we're going to give out badges. It's going to be like Girl Scouts. Like You get
So
badges for
cool.
completing
Yeah.
different things. So it's not just one-off classes that kind of have nothing to do with each other. It's
Sure.
really
They're
a
connected.
full, a connected, and there's a structure, and each class fits into a particular skill set development or module that is really a comprehensive career plan. It's really cool.
I'm excited for it, and I think it's definitely a needed thing.
Plus all the instructors, I don't know everybody who's signed up to attend, but I know all of the instructors are just amazingly cool people in general. So I think it's going to be it's just going to be also a great time for all people to get together and be with like the nerdiest nerds in coffee.
The nerdiest nerds. I love it. I'll tell them you said that. As we close, we always share a few books or things that have been formative on our learning journey. So I'm curious, do you have a book or two or three that have been particularly formative for you? Could be professional, could also be just personal.
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is Modulating the Flavor Profile of Coffee by Rob Hoos.
Rob Hoos.
Yep. I read that. It came out when I was just starting to roast, and my boss at the time bought it for me and was like, "Here, read this." And I think I understood 2% of what that book said,
Sure.
because it's definitely intermediate or expert level roasting stuff. I mean, like, because I was so new to roasting, I hardly knew a thing. But I think even though I only understood a small portion of what it was saying, what I did understand was there is so much here to learn. And as that kind of goes back to the first reasons that I got in and stayed in coffee, is that I love the ability to continue learning. So, especially as a very, very early roaster, it was like, there's like an endless well here that I can't even understand what this guy is saying, but I know that I want to know what he's saying. So it kind of like hooked me in a curiosity way. So yeah, I would say that was definitely a big one. Well, and now I'm just thinking about all of the things Rob has written, because recently he came out with the book Cultivar, where he talks about different roasting approaches specifically based on the cultivar of coffee. And that's something that roasters ask me all the time is, how should I approach this coffee, knowing
Sure.
nothing else about machine
Yeah.
or anything. And so I think it answers questions that people have been asking, which I think is super useful. And yeah, let me see. I guess I guess I'll say the Blue Bottle coffee book.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was first baby barista in 2013, maybe 2014 is when this happened, I went to my local library and looked up coffee books. And there was nothing to be found. Nothing existed except for this one book about coffee by Blue Bottle. And I checked it out and I pored over those pages, and it was like the most basic information. Like, it was stuff that I learned in my Barista 101, training. And so it was stuff that I already knew. But I
Sure.
think the lesson that taught me was this information is not readily available everywhere. Like, you
Yeah.
can't just go to your library and find a book on anything you want about coffee. And so I guess in retrospect, I hadn't really thought about this before, but I think that probably informed my desire to share things as I was learning them, because I knew from that very early on, from the moment, like when I was such a baby barista and I was like starving and like really, really wanted more information, I couldn't find it. I think that probably inspired me in some back recesses of my brain to, when I started learning stuff, sharing it, because I knew you couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that has
It's a good rec.
shaped my career in ways beyond the book itself.
Yeah. Super interesting. It's cool to look back on those things and think through like how formative a particular book was, even if it wasn't necessarily the contents, but if it was the structure of how it was presented. Or there's a book that has just followed me. I recommend it to everybody. I make them read it in all of my cohorts. It's called Scrum: The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time. And frankly, a lot of the contents is like common sense, but structurally, the way it makes you start thinking about your work is really helpful, informative. And so I think that the Blue Bottle book is a perfect example of that, where maybe the information wasn't what connected for you, but understanding that this information is not readily available out there. And it's cool to see how that shaped your career. Yeah. Kat, thank you so much for spending some time chatting about your career and about the things you care about, both in art and the connection of coffee and art and social work and equity. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for being an open book and for chatting. How can folks get connected to you? Is there an email or is there a social profile you want to push them towards?
Yeah, find me on Instagram at roasterkat, cat with a K. That's probably the place that I'm most likely to respond to you. You can also email me, kat@coffeepeople.org. As I said, Coffee People zine is on a publication pause right now, but that's like my main email address. So kat, K-A-T, @coffeepeople.org. Those are the two places that I'll most likely see a message. Yeah. And Luke, I want to thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast to talk about these things, and also to take time out of your birthday day to spend time with me. Happy birthday. Everybody wish Luke a happy birthday.
Thanks, Kat. Happy to do it and happy to have you. And always happy to talk coffee with folks from the same neck of our woods.
Yeah.
Same neck of the woods.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we were talking. Was it at the Left Hook, like opening party or their block party? And we were just having such a great conversation. And it was like, this is what I love to do. And luckily you have a podcast where we can have more of these conversations and then share them with people.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's keep having conversations.
Yeah, love it.
Awesome. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Luke, and I'm back one last time with two questions. Number one, did you learn anything from that podcast? Or did you stumble upon a new question or a new thing that maybe you're not sure what the answer is? If either of those two are true for you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at pomelocoffeeconsulting.com. And there's a contact tab. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what questions you have, or maybe what question was answered in this podcast. As always, be well.